Let us continue right here on Midpoint, and let's welcome in and move forward now. He is a retired senior special agent for the Immigration and Naturalization Service who spent 30 years keeping America safe from the inside. And what we've been talking about is keeping America safe indeed. Michael Cutler joins us here on the show. Michael, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Ed.
Michael, I think you understand exactly what I'm saying when I say that the president really is not going to tell us a whole tremendous amount of what they're doing at this point, what they are going to do. They're going to play themselves close to the vest. But you've been involved in this for so many years, and watch this. When you hear the president speak, when you hear others talk about what we're doing, what we should be doing, what we might be doing, are we doing anything really of substance? And are we doing enough to keep this country safe?
No, we frankly are not. You know, I provided testimony to the 9/11 Commission. I was, as you point out, with the INS for 30 years. I've arrested terrorists in my career. And if you follow the reports about the terrorists, it's all about how they've been able to travel, how they've been able to gain access to countries throughout Europe. We still expand the visa waiver program. You know, on 9/11, we had 26 visa waiver countries. 38 countries are now on that list of countries whose citizens don't need visas before coming to the U.S. Senator Feinstein finally has raised this as something to look at. We need to do more than look. We have an administration hell-bent on providing official identity documents to millions of illegal aliens who ran our borders. They like to call them undocumented. In point of fact, they're uninspected. Last year, according to reports issued by the government, more than $3.3 billion was spent on inspecting passengers and cargo entering the U.S. But if at the end of the day it doesn't matter how you get here, including running the border and evading the inspections process, then how on earth can you keep the bad guys out? You know, they made a big deal that these guys that committed that horrendous attack in Paris were on the no-fly list. I can assure you that they're not on the do not run our border list, though.
Well, wait a minute. Hang on a sec, David, because I'm going to play devil's advocate here on the borders. And you're exactly right. But let's not just bring us down to the borders themselves of just what's happening, let's say, in the southeast, between Mexico and the United States. When we're talking about borders, we talk about Canada. We talk about coming in via sea. But when we talk about just that border to the south, there doesn't seem to be a tremendous amount of evidence that they're just walking across at this point, that terrorists are just walking across. Granted, we need to keep them secure and make sure that we are protected there, but don't we need to spend less time thinking about terrorists coming across from Mexico and really worry about them coming here in planes with tickets and those coming in boats and those driving cars across from Canada just as much as we do looking to the south?
You're singing my song. You know, for the longest time, I've said that we are a country of 50 border states. Any state with an international airport or access to our coastline or lies along the northern or southern borders are all border states. You know, I wrote an article for Front Page Magazine. I called it Border Security in the Immigration Colander, making precisely that point. But we do have evidence that so-called special interest country aliens, countries that sponsor terrorism, have entered the United States or attempted to enter through the Mexican border, but the 9/11 terrorists came through ports of entry. So the problem is that there is no plan B. You know, the outfielders on a baseball team make certain that if anybody hits the ball over the infielder's head, they're there to deal with that ball. Right now, anybody who can get past an inspector at a port of entry or run past the Border Patrol or stow away on a ship is essentially home free.
All right, then how do we get to that point, though, Michael? Because I got a couple of minutes left, but how do we get to the point of where we don't become a completely paranoid nation where every single person who comes across either in a rowboat or a jet plane or walks across, we want to go ahead, take them, frisk them, and basically x-ray them to the point before they walk into this country? How do we get to that point to where we don't become a nation that is itself held captive?
Well, you know, there's an expression in law enforcement that says just because you're paranoid, it doesn't mean you're not being followed. But in point of fact, look, we have to recognize the fact that we need to weed down the number of people that would enter our country in violation of law. You do it through deterrence. It's remarkable. Chuck Schumer, who wants to give citizenship to illegal aliens, wants people to trespass on landmarks to go to jail for 5 years. These are trespassers. If you evade the inspections process designed in part to keep out criminals and terrorists, you pose a potential threat. We need to lower that threat level by effectively enforcing immigration laws, which would also have other benefits. For example, making certain that Americans get the jobs they desperately need. We have 100 million unemployed Americans, and we talk about a 5.6 unemployment rate. There's a real disconnect with reality, isn't there?
There is indeed. I only got about a minute left, so let me just ask you this. Is it to the point right now where we as Americans, boy, this is tough to say, where sometimes we have to go back and watch the actual video of the planes flying into the World Trade Centers and the hole left in the ground in Pennsylvania and the hole at the Pentagon to really understand the fact that we're at war and it's not gone away.
No, and look at the Boston attack just last year. You know, I testified 4.5 years before 9/11 about the threats posed by visa fraud, immigration fraud, and then we had 9/11. If the Clinton administration had paid attention, 9/11 could not have happened.
Why don't they pay attention to people like you, Michael?
Well, I've done 16 hearings. I wish they had listenings better than hearings. But the problem are these special interest groups that see huge profits to be had in cheap labor, the influx of more than 1 million foreign students and tourists. So we are sacrificing national security for the profits of the very few, and we're endangering the survival of America and Americans. And, you know, by the way, it's not anti-immigrant to want the laws enforced. Those same laws allow more than 1 million lawful immigrants to enter the United States every year. We just need to make certain it has integrity.
10 seconds. Name one special interest group right at the top of your list that's at fault here.
U.S. Chamber of Commerce, American Immigration Lawyers Association.
I tell you what, I want you to keep that list handy because we're going to come back sometime soon, near future. We'll examine that and talk a little bit more about that in depth. Michael Cutler, a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, break, and we return with the finest thing to come out of the Beltway every single week, the most impactful and critical few minutes of video you will see all week that will explain absolutely everything. It's coming up on Midpoint.